Hello and welcome back to Live from Paris here on France 24. It's time now for the latest business news with Matthew Warren. And Matthew, we're going to start off with Spain because their borrowing costs hit a new record yesterday.
Yes, that's right, Lorna. Now, we've been keeping a close eye on borrowing costs all week. Reason for that is that when bond yields get higher, that shows that investors are more nervous about a country's finances. And yesterday, Spain's bond yields broke through the 7% barrier. Now, that's important because that's the point at which investors feel if it goes on for too long, it's unsustainable for a country to keep borrowing at that level. Of course, we saw Ireland and Portugal both getting bailouts at that point.
OK, and several European leaders still pushing for measures like Eurobonds to try and help that crisis along. But Germany still very much opposed to Eurobonds.
Angela Merkel is continuing to say a big 9 to that. She's resolutely opposed. Now, this weekend, leaders from G20 nations will be gathering in Mexico to talk about this issue and others, of course. Now, yesterday, Angela Merkel was warning that other leaders shouldn't expect too much from Germany.
To all those looking to Germany again, at the G20 summit in Los Cabos, and to all those who are expecting a drum roll and an answer, I say to them, yes, Germany is strong. Germany is an engine of economic growth and an anchor of stability in Europe. But Germany's strength has its limits. Germany's powers are not unlimited.
Well, Angela Merkel also faces challenges within her own country. Neither the fiscal pact nor the European stability mechanism have yet been ratified by Parliament. And she's facing resistance not only from the opposition, but from within her own coalition and German industry.
Will it be passed or not? The European Fiscal Pact is the focus of much attention in Berlin. Angela Merkel needs the support of the opposition to ratify the treaty, but they want to impose their own conditions. They won't say yes to fiscal austerity without getting commitment to growth.
We will continue to waste taxpayers' money on German rescue plans if we do nothing to really save those states. And it will only work if we invest in employment and growth.
Negotiations between the majority and the opposition will resume next week. Time is running out because the budget pact must be agreed on together with the European Stability Mechanism, which enters into force on July 1st. But here again, the Chancellor is facing strong resistance. A group of dissidents within the ranks of her own coalition has decided to oppose the treaty. They have the support of a powerful lobby of family-run SMEs, which has concerns about the consequences of the ESM for the German economy.
The insecurity about the rescue of the euro is very high in Germany. We have always said we are for the euro, but against this type of rescue, because in the end, the Germans will never pay all that is expected of them.
The Chancellor is committed to ratifying the two treaties, but in order to get the two-thirds majority needed in Parliament, she will have to make concessions. To postpone the vote would have incalculable consequences.
In this case, financial markets would become even more nervous, the situation would be even more volatile, and interest rates for countries like Spain or Italy could increase as an exit from the crisis is further delayed.
The government announced that the vote will take place on June 29th, straight after the European Council meeting.
Well, let's have a look at the European markets then this morning, Matthew. How are they opening up, given all this news?
Yes, well, you would expect actually that the markets might be dropping, but if we take a look at how markets are opening up, they're all up in positive territory this morning. Just like to add as well, we've just been hearing that the ratings agency Moody's has downgraded 5 Dutch banking groups, including ING and Rabobank, and one Belgian bank. That's on fears, of course, of the Eurozone debt crisis. Let's take a look as well at Asia and how markets have wrapped up trading there. It's also mostly up across the board. Now, one reason for this positive sentiment is that investors are hoping and expecting that central banks are going to be taking some action to stimulate the economy. And in fact, Mario Draghi, head of the ECB here in Europe, is talking right now about that.
OK, well, we'll, of course, keep you up to date. But in the meantime, you did mention central banks there. And the governor of Britain's central bank, Mervyn King, he's already said that he's prepared to take action. Yes,
that's right. Now, the finance minister of the UK, or Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, and the Bank of England governor were both at a very fancy dinner last night. The Mansion House dinner happens once a year. And they spoke about the need to take action. And George Osborne, who we can see there, said that the Eurozone crisis is really having a bad effect. The Bank of England governor said that Britain will launch a scheme to provide cheap long-term funding to banks, and their plan between them is to pump £100 billion, that's 123 billion euros, into the British economy. Well, now let's take a look at some more of the day's business news. And banks in the UK will have to ring-fence their retail operations under new proposals published yesterday. Draft legislation will separate retail operations from riskier activities such as investment banking. Finance Minister George Osborne said the reforms were designed to protect taxpayers when things go wrong.
Coca-Cola is to return to Burma after a 60-year absence. The company said it was resuming operations following the suspension of sanctions against the country. Burma was just one of 3 countries where Coca-Cola doesn't do business. The other 2 are Cuba and North Korea.
And car sales in Europe fell by 8.7% in May. The biggest drop was in Greece, where new sales were down almost a half. Just the UK managed an increase, with sales there up 8% on the same month a year earlier.
OK. We're going to move to the US now, because a legal battle there looked more like the set of a Hollywood drama this week. 2 actors were in court arguing over a disputed share sale. The claims centre around a contract with BP to help clean up the mess from the Gulf of Mexico oil spill. Here's more.
Oil, greed, courts, feuding celebrities. But it's not an episode of Dallas, rather a real-life drama involving actors Kevin Costner and Stephen Baldwin. The 2 men had a falling out over a business deal, and Baldwin sued Costner, claiming the actor had cheated him out of millions of dollars. A claim rejected by the jury, who chose to award no damages. Baldwin and another investor had been asking for $17 million in compensation. Costner said he was thankful.
They were really smart, and it was my good luck that they saw the truth of the story, and it was a good luck of this company and the good luck of everybody involved that they understood that we were talking about a facts and not a story.
The lawsuit stemmed from a BP contract for using oil cleanup devices in the aftermath of the 2010 Gulf of Mexico spill. Baldwin and his friend invested in Costner's oil spill fighting company, Ocean Therapy Solutions, but decided to sell their shares before BP gave the firm a juicy contract. Baldwin claims Costner didn't tell him BP placed a $52 million order for the oil separating devices, an assertion Costner denied. Instead, Costner said Baldwin knew about the order, but chose to sell his shares instead of gambling for a more lucrative payout if BP signed a binding contract.
Catherine Viette there. And lastly, Matthew, Sweden is getting a fresh set of banknotes, and they've decided on some images of well-known Swedes to put on.
That's right. They've decided to bring the banknotes up to date, almost up to date. The central bank in Sweden organised a competition to design new banknotes. That was won by a gentleman called Göran Österlund. Now, these notes are going to include some slightly more contemporary people. Greta Garbo, for example, Ingmar Bergman, the director, of course, Astrid Lindgren. She wrote the Pippi Longstocking books.
I love those books.
Yes, so so those will be sort of featuring on notes soon. But I just felt that there were perhaps a few celebrities they'd missed out from Sweden. For example, ABBA. Why aren't they on the notes?
They would make a lovely, the 4 of them all together. And the one, of course, that they've definitely missed off is our very own business editor, Marcus Carlson. He looked lovely on a banknote.
Can't believe how they've passed him by.
Oh, perhaps next time. You never know. Well, thanks very much indeed, Matthew. And do tweet Matthew if you have any more suggestions for people who should go on those Swedish banknotes. Thanks very much indeed for today's business news. And that's just about it from us for now. But do stay tuned, because Luke Brown will be here after the weather with more news headlines. Bye for now.